Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the first of 5 Grade 1 events that will be contested on Travers Saturday at Saratoga. Race 9 is the Grade 1 Personal Ensign, going the 1.125 distance for the older fillies and mares. But before we do our deep dive into this race, I want to remind everybody that we recently launched a podcast at DRF. It's called Off the Track. It's hosted by our colleague Gino Piccolo, who's been doing a great job getting some really interesting guests on, having conversations about their time in the sport, jockeys, trainers, some people who work in racing offices. He's had Katie Davis on, jockey Kendra Carmouche. He's had trainer Mark Cassie. I believe he's going to have trainer Doug O'Neill on a recent episode. So you definitely want to check out Off the Track while you're here on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube channel, or also any podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, and Amazon Music. Mike, got a field of 7 entered for this Grade 1 Personal Ensign, and there is a star in their midst, the number 7 Thorpedo Anna, last year's Horse of the Year, who I did peg as the clear-cut favorite on the morning line, but she is a divisive favorite because feels like handicappers have one of two opinions of her. But she's doing what she needs to do to win these races, and she's going to smash these horses, even though she's stepping up against the tougher field because she is just the grizzly bear that's better than everybody else, or she's shown some vulnerability and running some lower speed figures this year. And I think her presence makes this an interesting race to handicap and wager on.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like if you force me to, I feel like I could probably argue either side of that, David. But it does feel like, listen, last year it was clear. She was just better than the 3-year-old fillies. They could not beat her. That's probably not the case so far this year. I mean, on paper anyway, it looks like maybe she's almost as good as she was last year. If you just go by the races she's run in, and she's an Apple Blossom winner and a Fleur de Lis winner already this year. She can obviously still run. She's just not as impressive this year as she was last year.
Yeah, and this will be the toughest test that she's faced since she ran off the board in that Grade 1 La Troyenne against a lot of the similar foes that she'll be meeting here. We'll see if she can fare better at the Grade 1 level. Let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector to get a sense of where Thorpedo Anna and some others might be placed in the early stages. And Mike, I think drawing the outside post is not really a detriment for Thorpedo Anna. She's got good tactical speed, and it kind of gives Brian Hernandez Jr. an opportunity to look to his left, see who's getting aggressively ridden, and decide where he wants to place himself heading into that clubhouse turn. And kind of alternatively, the other bookend, the number 1 randomized, the rail is probably a great draw for her because she wants to be on the lead, and typically drawing inside in these 1.125 races at Saratoga only helps speed horses.
Very true. And I do agree that the pace could get pretty heated in here because the presence of the 2 and the 5 in particular, if this field holds together, does feel like they could really push the pace. I would also say it's a good post for Thorpedo Anna, and I understand that she's sort of a handy, tractable kind of horse. I do think, though, if it's a fast pace, I do think it works against her.
Yeah, it could really bring out any limitations in stamina that she has shown this year. We'll see if that's the case on the racetrack. Let's go through this field in post position order, beginning with the number 1 randomized, a horse who's likely to be setting the pace in this Personal Ensign, as she did in her most recent start that we're taking a look at here, the Grade 3 Molly Pitcher. And this was a real return to form for a horse who has done some very good things over the past couple of seasons. She was the winner of the Grade 1 Alabama as a 3-year-old. She won the Grade 1 Ogden Phipps last year in 2024, and she got back on track in this Molly Pitcher, trying to set herself up for potentially another Grade 1 win at Saratoga in this Personal Ensign. But Mike, it might not be easy for her, or at least as easy as it was last time on the front end here, because as you were alluding to, it does feel like there are a couple of other speeds in here. If this race holds together, the number 5 Bernie Take Charge, she is cross-entered in a race on Friday. That one's on turf though, so we'll see if she ends up running here instead. And then the number 2 Dazzling Move, a horse who has shown a lot of early speed in her races. I'm wondering how much she's going to go after randomized early.
It's probably the whole key to the race, whether the field stays intact first of all, and then whether or not randomized does take pressure from a horse like Dazzling Move, because if she does, it hurts her chances, David. I mean, she's a horse who just wants to be on the lead. There's no way that Manny Franco is going to concede to another horse in here. He's going to break it. He's going to go to the lead. He's not going to concede it. So if they decide to go after her, she's probably going to be dueling the pace. So, we'll see how these riders decide to play it. Either way, randomized is a super dangerous horse in here. This is a great post for her. She's really fast. She's clearly a Grade 1 quality filly. And we've already seen her deal with pressure on the lead before and stand up really, really well to it. I mean, she's going to be a handful in here. She ran really well last time, and this is tougher, but she's in good form again.
Yeah, let's not forget her Breeders' Cup distaff from the end of 2023, where she took heat on the front end every step of the
Yeah.
way and just barely gave it up at the end. So she's game when she gets her head in front early, as she's likely to here. The number 2 Dazzling Move, probably the main pace foe for randomized in this spot, Mike. Though I was just watching an interview with Safi Joseph before we started recording this, and he was saying he doesn't want to see her on the lead. He knows randomized is drawn inside, and he's already planning to rate this horse off of her. His only concern is that sometimes Dazzling Move is unrateable because she wants to go to the front. So we'll see if Jose Ortiz is able to get a hold on her early. She has had success going to the lead, though, in her recent starts. So I'm not sure why you'd want to take that speed away from her. And it seems like that's what's helped her get some of the longer distances that she's tried, earning some grade 1 and grade 2 placings in her recent races. I just wonder if her ceiling is quite as high as some others in this field.
I don't think it is. I actually, and I understand that her last 3 races, in fact, are all at 9 furlongs, and she's run okay in those races. She doesn't want to go this far. It certainly she doesn't want to go this far against top level competition. And this is top level competition. To me, there's no way that she wins if she tries to make the lead, because I don't think she can outduel randomize and still be around. And to me, there's no way that she wins if they decide to rate her either.
The number 3, Raging Sea, is going to hope that that pace projector prediction of a fast pace is correct, because she's going to need all the help she could get to close from the back of the pack and pass everybody in the late stages. It's what happened in this race last year, Mike, when she earned her grade 1 victory in the Personal Ensign as Idiomatic, when after randomized on the front end that day, they dueled through fast fractions, and Idiomatic ran huge in defeat, but Raging Sea was able to pick her up at the very end of that race. Since coming back for her 5-year-old season this year, she's just not run as fast as the best numbers that she posted during her 4-year-old season. And you kind of gave her the excuse for the La Troyenne, even though she won the grade 1 because it was her first start off a layoff. But you would have expected her to move forward off that. And instead, she's gone backwards in 2 subsequent starts. And I've got to admit, I'm kind of surprised to see Flavie Prat choosing to ride this horse instead of randomized, who he piloted to victory last time.
Yeah, I'm concerned with her last couple of races. And the race 2 back, that was sort of a mess of a track in the Phipps, and she did get bumped really hard a couple of times at the start of that race. She wound up way back in the field, and I guess she ran okay, all things considered. But that wasn't a particularly compelling performance. She was even worse last time. So yeah, it's a real question of whether she's come back as good at 5 as she was at 4. The other thing about her, David, is that she's got 2 grade 1 wins, the 2 major wins, and they're both a little bit opportunistic. I mean, I don't want to take too much away from her, but both of those times, and listen, she got randomized in here again, so maybe it'll set up the right way. But in both of those races, randomized set the race up for Raging Sea, and she really took advantage.
The number 4, Darth Vader, earned a grade 1 victory in the Ogden Phipps 2-back at this track, but over a muddy surface. That track took a lot of rain before Belmont Stakes Day on the Friday of that week, and you could see Darth Vader ranging up on the outside of Dazzling Move and putting that one away through the stretch. That is Raging Sea closing to pick up 3rd, far behind them in the late stages. But Darth Vader, she was really good this day, Mike, and not to redboard too much, but I just couldn't understand how she was going off at 8-1 in this race, because when you watch the replay back of that La Troyenne at Churchill Downs in early May, I think it's pretty easy to argue that Darth Vader was going to win that race if she hadn't had trouble into the first turn. I mean, a lot of the trouble that was attributed to Thorpedo Anna experiencing, Darth Vader took the worst of it, and then she got stuck in traffic, stymied through the late stages of that race. I believe she was going to win the La Troyenne. Now, you could argue about how far that's really going to take her, because the La Troyenne came back a slow race, but facing off against those that she was in the Ogden Phipps, she had her day in the sun that day, got the right trip, earned the victory. Now, obviously, she took a step backwards last time in the Molly picture, finishing behind randomized. But something I noticed about Darth Vader is that she's run her better races since they've taken the blinkers off. When they aren't so aggressive with her, they kind of hold her up behind the pace horses. And last time, with no other speed in the race, Johnny V was sort of forced to be the one to go up and pressure the pace in the middle of that race after randomized. I don't think that's the best way that Darth Vader runs anymore. And I think in this race, with the way it lines up, she's going to get her better trip sitting behind those horses stalking.
So I like that analysis of her running style, to be sure. A couple of things about that. So the Ogden Phipps, even you're 100% right about her La Troyenne, where she had that sort of subtle trouble in there, and it was way worse than I think people gave her credit for. And so that made her an interesting horse going into the Phipps, even if somehow you knew ahead of time that 3 horses were going to totally no-show in there, and just sort of open the race up. So it really came down to a match race between her and Dazzling Move. And I got news for you. She's better than Dazzling Move. So that was a great day to have her. Last time in the Molly picture was, in my opinion anyway, a great day to bet against her because there was no way she was going to be randomized in that race in a fairly run race. And she didn't. And not only didn't she didn't come close. Maybe she'll get a better trip in here. I think that's certainly possible. I do think she's good enough to win in this race, but I do want to wait and see what kind of price she is. I'm not totally sold that she's as good as some of the other horses in this race.
I get the sense a lot of handicappers think that she's considered a fluky winner of that grade 1-2 back, and I'm not quite sure that's the case. We'll see what price she is. I agree. It's going to be determinant for the chances of a lot of horses in here. The number 5, Bernie Takes Charge. We'll take a look at her most recent start in the Critical Eye, where she was beating New York breds this day. But Mike, she met a pretty good New York bred foe in Sterling Silver, who is a graded stakes quality horse. Just not sure that Sterling Silver is at her best going the mile and an eighth that she was facing on this day. And I think that really gave the advantage to Bernie Takes Charge, who's able to fend her off in the late stages. Bernie Takes Charge is dangerous when she's able to set her own pace up front. Just not sure she's going to have that opportunity if she goes here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how if this is where they run her, I don't see how she gets the trip that she really wants. She's won twice over this distance. In both of those races, she made the lead and saw out the distance really, really well. So I know she gets this far. I just don't see her getting that trip against this field and then, somehow being good enough to win.
Mike, if you're looking for an alternative to the favorite, I get the argument for the number 6, Leslie's Rose in here, because she is coming off one of the best performances put forth by anybody in this race in their most recent effort. As we take a look at her prep for this, the grade 2 Chuvy, where she soundly defeated Dazzling Move. And we've talked about Dazzling Move maybe not really wanting to get the mile and an eighth distance, but Leslie's Rose was much the best this day. And it was a return to form for a horse that clearly did not handle the track in the Ogden Phipps 2-back. Mike, I just personally have never been the biggest fan of this horse today. Is it fair that I still don't totally trust her to put two good races back to back? Because it feels like she so rarely does.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, she's a really it's interesting because I actually think she's really good. And so, but I understand the counter argument to that because there are some races on her card where you're just kind of like, really, that's the race that you showed up with in that spot. So we'll see. I think she's good. To me, more than anything else last year, you can forget the Kentucky Oaks. It's another wet track race. She hates wet tracks like that. So, and she proved that 2 starts back. So forget that one. But all of her other races, I thought, as a 3-year-old, were really good. And I know she was no match for Thorpedo Anna. I thought this horse ran great in the Acorn. Thorpedo Anna was just better than she was. And so Pletcher and Johnny, they tried to do it a different way in the Coaching Club American Oaks. And I totally get it. They just sent her and the pace was solid and it didn't really work out for her. But I don't think she ran poorly in either of those races. She just wasn't as good as Thorpedo Anna last year. I think that gap has narrowed this year. I think she's probably closer to Thorpedo Anna now. I thought her prep race off the layoff was perfect sprinting and she ran fine in there. And I thought she got back on form last time. She gets great trips in her races when the track is fast because she has really good tactical speed. And I think she's going to get a great trip in this race.
The number 7, Thorpedo Anna, I pegged her as the 6-5 morning line favorite. I'm going to be interested to see how the public bets her, Mike, because these polarizing horses, always difficult to judge how much money they're going to take because, we get so caught up in conversations about being contrarians, but there are a lot of fans of Thorpedo Anna out there. They're probably going to bet their money. And, with good reason, Mike. I mean, she's won 11 at 14. She was so dominant last year. And I think we both agree that if the 2024 version of Thorpedo Anna decides to show up in this race, everybody else is running for second. Just a big question about whether or not she's still that same horse, because honestly, just about every race since that hard effort in the Travers last year has not been quite as sparkling as those before it. And this year, I know she's won 3 races pretty easily. This is a way tougher spot than those that she faced in the Florida Lee, the Apple Blossom, and the Azeri.
I agree with all that stuff. You're right. I mean, if she somehow has that flashback to 2024 and becomes that horse again, she's just going to win here. But I don't trust her to do that, especially at the price that she's going to be. Again, I do think a fast pace might work against her a little bit too. And, just talking about prices, and I understand it's had to be very hard for you to make a line and peg her wherever you peg her. But she's been 1 to 5 or less in every one of her races this year. People love this horse for good reason. She's really good, but I don't know. You're right. This is the toughest race that she's been in since the La Troyenne, and she did not run well that day. And I think it's only fair to try to beat her here if she's a really short price.
Well, Mike, I think I've gotten even more interested in this race after talking about it with you because there's a lot going on for just a 7-horse field. Let's go to picks for this Grade 1 Personal Ensign. And we're both against Thorpedo Anna, I think, to different degrees. You actually put her in your picks. I left her out completely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's a little bit of an all or nothing type in this race, as she was in La Troyenne. So I'm against her. I left her out. I put the number 4, Darth Vader, on top. I just feel like she's maybe not getting the credit she deserves just yet for how much she's improved since coming back for her 5-year-old season. So I like her in the spot. I think the price is going to be fair enough on her once again. So she's my pick in here. I'm afraid of randomized, but Mike, I'm also afraid of the horse that you put on top, even though I couldn't quite get to her.
Yeah, I'm afraid of randomized too. I didn't totally leave Thorpedo Anna out of this race as you did, but maybe I should have. I'm not interested in using her anywhere. And I do want to beat her. But I'm just going to stick with Leslie's Rose. I've been a fan of hers for a long time. And I do think even with all the little hiccups in her past performances, I think you can make legit excuses for just about all of them. I think she's a really nice fit here. I think she's going to get a good trip.
Really fun edition of the Grade 1 Personal Ensign. Mike's going with Leslie's Rose, 6-7-1-3 for him. I've got Darth Vader on top, 4-1-6-3 for me in this 9th race at Saratoga on Travers Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.